Welcome back to Contemporary Black Voices, and we're going to continue this dynamic, interesting conversation with Mr. Calvert. DC, I want to go back. I want to set it up this way. As you recall, 1980, Ronald Reagan made his first campaign speech in Philadelphia, Mississippi,
Right.
where the three civil rights workers are killed.
Yeah.
It was a dog whistle
Yeah.
to the states' rights. I'm giving it back to you.
Yeah.
I'm taking it from the federal government and giving it back to the states.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2024, we're getting that same kind of information coming out of Washington, D.C., and it looks like because the states, I think it happened really about 2010, in the off election, they took control of a lot of the state legislatures. What they started to do then is pass laws that we're having to suffer from now.
Yeah.
So how important to you is that these state legislatures and what they're doing?
Well, voter suppression and all the voter ID and all the hard to vote stuff comes from the state legislators. And it's the governors and the state legislators, specifically in these states, Professor, that have been the ones that are really making it harder for us to get the right to vote. The listeners and the viewers need to understand that our only weapon we have is our vote.
Is our vote, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only weapon we have. Don't be talking about my vote don't count. Yes, your vote does count. People that won elections by 1 and 2 votes. So every vote does count.
Okay. I think Dr. Shadwell, do you have a question?
Yeah,
or a
going
comment?
back to that discussion from the previous segment where we were talking about the banning of books and what that has done in terms of generating more interest among Black folks.
Yes, ma'am.
I was noticing on my Facebook feed, I'm continuously getting updates about African history, African American history, and then how they're using AI technology now, especially on imaging, to show images of what Jesus could, would have looked like, what Hannibal would have looked like, especially like you got Denzel Washington playing Hannibal now,
Come on.
and the uproar about that, there's no, Hannibal was white,
Come on.
and so we're seeing more filmmakers push out a different narrative. I even saw Betty Boop.
Yeah.
For a long time, Betty Boop was white, but now we're finding out that she was Black. And now they have all these different images of, on an AI of Betty Boop. And then Betty Boop is looking fine, right? But I'm seeing the pushback on the book ban via social media. And so you're right. The book ban has caused more people like myself. I have purchased a lot of the banned books, just to have them. But they cannot suppress what we want to learn. And unless it has shut down the internet, the learning is going to continue. But my question to you is this: as a Black woman, what do you see in 2024 if Trump gets back in office? What that will do to not only Black men but to Black women in terms of excellence?
Well, one thing I want to say about Black women, Black women have been the center foundation of our community and supporting our community. In the civil rights movement, it was Black women that did all the work. And let me just say this. What I've seen and what impresses me the most is how Black women are going in business for themselves. They're not trying to get a job with the man. They're starting their own businesses. And that is very impressive to me, that we are stimulating our own economic empowerment. We're stimulating our own businesses, and Black women are in the forefront of that more so than Black men. So Black women got it going on.
Well, interesting enough, there's a couple of Black women in Atlanta, who has this venture capital fund.
Yeah.
That I forgot who is the representative here in Texas, filed a lawsuit against these women because that funding was for Black business women.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. Black women will continue to be the trailblazers, and they will continue to be the foundation to make our country a great country. And what the powers that be need to understand, when they stimulate economic development, it helps everybody. It only not just helps our Black community and our Black families, but it helps all communities across this country.
I think we got a question over here from Chris.
I want to get back to the voting piece because I think that's very important for not only Texas and the country in general.
Right.
So my first question is that when you look at East Texas, okay, between Houston and Texarkana,
Okay.
okay, I don't understand why that is not a black congressional district. There are so many black people in that area, in that corridor. That should always be, if we vote, okay? The problem is that we're not voting. The second question for you is that everybody all around the country is looking at Texas and wondering when Texas is going to turn blue.
Well, that's a good question. I'm glad you bring it and raise it. There's something called gerrymandering. Okay? For those that are tuned in, gerrymandering is when they carve out and make sure that black people are not in control. We want to make sure that white voters control this congressional district. So in southern states, and specifically to the viewers who are watching this, in the state of Texas, the Democrats have no control. So the Republican Party under Governor Greg Abbott, they made sure that they gerrymandered East Texas. And you're absolutely correct. Well, actually, the great state of Texas should have at least 2 black congressional districts, one out of the Houston, East Texas area, and also out of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area. So they made sure that that didn't happen. As you see right now in the great states of Mississippi and Louisiana, they're still trying to tell black voters that you can't have these congressional districts. And that's a disgrace, and it's shameful, and they ought to be ashamed of themselves. If we want to live in democracy, that's that Trump crowd. That's that MAGA crowd. Yes, I said it, and they're wrong. They're wrong, they're wrong, and they're wrong, and they know they're wrong. And it's un-American. Use their terminology. It's un-American and unpatriotic for what they're doing to black voters, and they know it.
And I know, I don't know the exact case, but in 2010, the Supreme Court ruled
Right.
that some of the states no longer had to pass the test with the Justice Department when they did their
The Voting Rights Act.
voting rights. Yeah. That opened up the door for
Yeah.
them to start gerrymandering the way they're doing
Yeah.
now. So do you have any hope? I think I know the answer before I ask you this, TC. Do you have any hope that we can count on the Supreme Court to back us in terms of what's right and not what's Trump?
I would want to say that I would hope that the Supreme Court would do the right thing, but I don't think they will, because you got to remember who appointed them. They were appointed by Republicans, and they're gonna go with the Republican Party line. But I hope that the Supreme Court proves T.C. Calvert wrong.
Okay. Yeah. Questions?
No, I think he's absolutely right. And I hope that what he says is correct. The Supreme Court, though, has an opportunity because they're appointed for life. They have the opportunity to be able to do the right thing. The question is like TC says, will they do the right
Well,
thing?
I always like to go back to Earl Warren
Yeah.
in 1954
Yeah,
when Eisenhower appointed him,
Yeah.
thinking that he would be a conservative, and he turned the tables on Eisenhower and pushed. He not only wanted a 5-4 vote in the Brown
Yeah,
report,
yeah.
he wanted unanimous, and he was able to get all 9 justices.
right.
So maybe a couple of those guys, I don't know who they are, will turn out to be like Earl Warren. And
Well, we would hope
do
they'll
the
have
right
a pure
thing.
heart and do the right thing.
So what, as we kind of start to wind up things, TC, what, are we in trouble? Black folks, are we in trouble?
Let me tell you something. Black folks are a resilient people. Black folks always stand the test of time. Remember, Fred, what we went through the 60s. We survived, and we're still going to be survivors. It's just like I said earlier in the earlier segment, keep on talking about eliminating Black history. Help us sell some more books, Professor. And so y'all need to keep blasting that you want to do away with our history, because every time you open your mouth, right-wingers, about Black history in our schools, you're helping.
How do we, okay, take Florida, or you can take Texas, as they eliminate Black history, who's going to pick up the slack? Who's going to do it?
We have to do it ourselves.
Okay, I understand. Who is it within us that has to do it? I would think the perfect folks would be the churches. But
That's what's happening in Florida.
the churches,
The
that
Black churches that say, you know what, we got this.
Yeah, amen.
And, you know, in these churches, I'm thinking about San Antonio, we got these huge buildings where they can turn in, going back to the Saturday school,
Amen.
you know, because the Japanese go to school 6 days a week. And even in San Antonio, they have a Saturday school. So it wouldn't hurt to put the kids in you know, a couple hours on a Saturday in church.
That brings a very pressing question for me that I want to direct to Mr. T.C. Calvert. Does San Antonio have the leadership, the Black leadership, to be able to do what Dr. Chadwell is saying?
Yes.
To be able to pull these churches
Yes.
together.
Yes,
Okay.
we have
Who
to-
are they? Name.
Well, look, let me just say this. I don't have to name names because if I start naming names, one of those
Right.
pastors is going to call me and say, Calvert, you know, I got your back and you know I would have done.
Let them call you.
Let me just say this, Dawkins. Let me say this. You got to remember in our community, especially here for the viewers across the nation, San Antonio, Texas has a church on every corner.
I think every
We
city
have
does.
we have close to maybe 900 to 1,000 or more Black churches in San Antonio of all denominations. So the sister is correct that the churches can take the ball and run with it, but you got to make sure the community groups are also involved, other groups are involved. And I just like the fact that individuals are taking up the ball to make sure that our
But
history is
TC,
not destroyed.
that's not going to happen unless somebody decides to take it by the horns and say, we want it to happen. She's making a very good point, okay?
Mhm.
But we don't have, or we have not seen anybody in the community, and it's been very sparse throughout the United States for somebody to do that. We don't have a leader in the United States, and we don't have a leader right now in San Antonio. And until that happens, we're not going to see what she talked about.
Well, I have to disagree with you,
Okay.
and I think we're going to be okay.
Okay.
I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to take the high road. I think we have more than enough people, and even some of our Hispanic and even some of our white liberal friends are going to be coming to help us, making sure that if you look at the protests that happened in Harvard, when what was the situation in Harvard with the professors? It was mostly white males that were protesting. So, and when you looked at George Floyd, when he was murdered, you saw white America come out of the woodwork for George Floyd. So I don't think we're going to have a problem. I think all you got to look at right now is how many banned Black books are being sold. They're being sold out. Some of them are becoming million sellers. So you have to look at that as a flow chart to where the progress is going. So we're going to be all right.
Okay.
We're going to be all right, Black America.
Okay, I think that is a great positive note to end this session of our show. So stay tuned. We're going to get to hot topics, and it's going to be hot this week.